Back in June, I, female, found out that my parents sold their house more than 7 years ago and then they rented it back from the new owners. They sold it so they could settle my brother's gambling debt and other debts, as there were people constantly coming to the house to harass our parents into settling his debt, and these were some really bad people. And then the landlord put up the rent to nearly double and my parents just couldn't afford it. My mother only told me the truth about their circumstances after suddenly weeping when I told her that I was planning a family trip for her birthday. My father was embarrassed and could barely look me in the eyes as my mother wept uncontrollably at the state of their life. I told them there was no point in being ashamed and that we need to devise a plan. At the moment, we're living in my 2-bedroom apartment. They get the big bedroom and I've converted my little office into my bedroom, and their stuff is in storage until I can find us a new place. Of course, I wasn't going to let my parents go homeless, and so I told them they could move in with me permanently. I was already in the process of buying a house, and so I've started to be more serious in my pursuit. At the time, my parents explained the situation to my brother. I told him I didn't have space for him, but I'd be willing to give him money for a deposit and first 6 months to help him get on his feet. He agreed. In the meantime, he's been staying at his girlfriend's. I found him several places and even applied for them. He told me he'd found a place on his own that he preferred. Now, I don't trust my brother with money, so I told him I would only give the money directly to his new landlord. I saw the place, it looked legit and everything was in order, so I sent the money to the landlord. Not a day later and my dad got a text from my brother's girlfriend asking him where he is. My father spoke to her and yes, as you might have already guessed, he ran away with the money. It turns out the landlord was his friend, and the only reason we know is because his girlfriend was angry he didn't share the money with her. Then last Friday he called to say he messed up and that he was in trouble for destroying a hotel room, that his girlfriend won't let him stay with her anymore and that he has nowhere to go. I told him I didn't care and hung up. My parents are heartbroken and worried about him. I heard them talking in private and basically they're too scared to voice their opinions for fear I might kick them out. I don't want my parents to be afraid of me and I want them to be comfortable. I feel like this is the only right way to deal with my brother. Am I the idiot for not letting him crash on the couch? Everyone's the idiot here. He took your money and ran when you did him a massive favor. He betrayed your trust. He basically stole your money in what amounted to a confidence scheme. I talk to your parents though and tell them that you're not going to kick them out for their opinions, but that your stance on this isn't going to change. Your parents are enabling him, and that's only going to make it worse. Why homeless? Prison is free of charge, I think. Sorry for being cynical. Your brother is the type of person that sucks people in who come too close to him, like a black hole. Stay away. He has a real potential to also wreck your life after your parents and perhaps his girlfriend's. Even if you wanted to help him, right now you simply have no space in your apartment, and I'm sure your financial resources are not unlimited either. He needs to figure this out by himself. Is it possible to recoup the money through legal means? Can he be charged for presenting a false front to claim the money? It was basically fraud and you know both parties. OP, stay strong. A gambler is always a gambler. They rarely change, even if they're no longer gambling money. Trust me, it took me 13 years to see it with my ex. If it's not money, it's trust or lives or other things. Even if you help him, he's going to relapse. He needs a hard and harsh wake-up. I don't think your problem is your brother, it's your parents. Why are they afraid of you? Because you've let your brother suffer the consequences of his own behavior? I think you really need to have a talk with them about everyone's expectations of them living with you. Do you think they'll invite your brother to stay with them during the day, when you get a house and go to work? Why are they so involved with your brother who literally cost them their own home? Once your brother is in jail, that'll solve his housing problem and maybe parents will realize he's the only person who created his problems and he's the only one who can fix them. My husband's little brother is 16 and has basically become like our honorary son. He was only 11 when he and I, 27 male, first met, and he immediately attached himself to me. We bonded over a similar love for video games and our shared disdain for the Marvel movies, while still getting roped into watching them all. He's the baby of the family by a long shot and was a later-in-life surprise for my in-laws. For reference, my husband is 28, so there's a 12-year age difference between the two. Once my husband and I moved in together, my little brother started wanting to stay over constantly. We limited this sum at first, but now that he's gotten older and more mature, we allow him to come and go pretty much as he pleases. This summer he stayed at our home a good portion of the time, to the point where his parents started complaining that they never see him anymore, so we started having to make rules that he had to be at home at least 2 days out of the week. To clarify, there's nothing bad going on at home that's making him come to our house, he just says we're more fun. This trend has continued now that school has started up. He's driving this year, so he's got more freedom. He'll stop by his own home after school to grab some clothes and say hi to his parents, then he'll come and spend the night at our place. However, school starting is what led to the central conflict of this post. I work from home while my husband doesn't, so it's just me in the house and everyone's usually left when I start my day. Friday, I noticed my little brother's car still in the driveway when I woke up, so I assumed he either slept through his alarm or he's sick. I go into his room to ask him what's up, and he said he just didn't feel like going that day. I replied something along the lines of, "Fair enough, dude, you want to go grab a bite and do some window shopping during lunchtime," and moved on. We all need days off. Well, mother-in-law got a call from the school about his absence, and called my husband, who then directs her to call me since he doesn't know what's going on. I told her he needed a mental health day, and she kind of went off on a rant about how all of this needs to be ran by her and that I had no right to sign off on something like this, because I agreed to write him a note so that his absence would be excused. She and I haven't spoken since, but little brother keeps begging my husband and I to let him come over, but his mom is saying no. I don't want this to damage the mother-in-law-son-in-law relationship I have with my husband's mother, but I just don't think I can apologize over this when she's holding her kid hostage from visiting us. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. He's not your child, and I think you writing a note definitely goes against not only parental boundary rules, but school rules as well. You are not a guardian, and the reason he prefers coming over to your house is because you don't parent him, because you're not his parent, and he's not your honorary son. I think you're hurting this kid, not holding him responsible and letting him do what he wants. His time by you should definitely be limited. I agree with mother-in-law 100%. Yeah, little brother has learned that your house is his chill pad. He doesn't have rules there, and he's pushing to see how far he can take that. Also, school just started. He just got off a mental health break that lasted 3 months. There's definitely something missing from this story. The parents are okay with their youngest being home only 2 days out of the week. Is it because OP's the fun place, or is the kid seeking refuge from something? I had a few friends in similar situations in high school, and it was almost always because they didn't want to be home rather than wanting to hang out somewhere fun. I, female 18, will be starting my first year of university in late September. My university has a program that allows international students to arrive in August and stay in uni accommodation to help them settle in. I took advantage of that and arrived a few days ago. One of my housemates, Navae, female 19, is from California. I was extremely excited to find out that Navae is doing Spanish as well. My course doesn't require us to be fluent when we apply, so I guess levels will vary. I know we'll be divided based on abilities for language classes, but we have culture and history classes together. We were trying to chat in Spanish, but it turns out Navae's level is very basic and she couldn't hold a conversation. No biggie. Mine is a bit higher as I've had Spanish in school since the age of 10, along with English. But while I didn't have any issues with Navae's Spanish, she had an issue with mine. Over the years, most of my teachers were native speakers and my accent is heavily influenced by Colombian Spanish. It's nowhere near perfect, but I tried my best to pronounce it correctly. Navae's accent is heavily influenced by English, including double vowels, etc. I thought it was just because she was a beginner, but turns out it's on purpose and she refuses to learn proper pronunciation. When she heard my accent, she berated me for using it. She scolded me and told me I should speak in my own accent and that it's cultural appropriation to learn native accents. I tried to explain to her. I tried to tell her that even our course has pronunciation classes, which we have to pass. Unfortunately, she wouldn't listen and would talk over me. It's like she didn't want to have a conversation with me. She just wanted to hear herself speak and have me nod and agree with everything she says. I told her again to butt off and leave my accent alone, and she called me racist for appropriating an accent, and I told her she's crazy and left the room. Sadly, turns out she recorded our conversation and threatens to send it to our university because I called her crazy and it's offensive. Was I really the idiot for calling her crazy? I'm worried that I was in the wrong and I don't see it and I will lose my uni place. I'm sorry, but your roommate does not sound very smart at all. You're not appropriating an accent. You're pronouncing the language correctly. She just doesn't like that you're making her look and sound like the ignoramus she is. Let her share that recorded conversation with everybody, and I guarantee the majority of people, if not everyone, will say that you are not the idiot. What kind of roommate starts recording conversations on their first day? She's literally wrong about all of that and actually sounds like a psycho. Depending on where you live and what university this is, she may actually get into serious trouble herself if she reveals that conversation. You're going to be fine. Ask if you can get reassigned to a new housemate. Ask today. That's absurd, and her taping is creepy and violating. 100% you need to beat her to the punch. Go to administration and say you were harassed, and then she told you she taped the conversation without your knowledge or consent and was threatening you with it. They will help you. OP, this is one of those times when you need to use your critical thinking skills. Alright, so first, I didn't adopt this child from another country. She does not have a cultural name. Her birth parents are alive. Story. My sister is an addict and has refused treatment for close to 10 years, and even refused to go when we did a professional-involved intervention. She has 5 kids, none in her custody. Last kiddo, they asked my wife and I to take the baby, a boy, but we couldn't take him at the time, apartment living with a roommate, both working insane hours, etc., but said if there ended up being another one, we would try to be sure we were in a better position by then. Well, lo and behold, here we are with a baby girl in our house. She's 3 days old, named Jade. Literally, that's her name. It's not a bad name, my wife and I don't hate it, but we don't care for it either, so we want to change it to the name we'd picked out for our own child, before we decided we aren't having kids of our own, Alexandra. We brought it up to my mother and she was adamant against it. She told my sister, and my sister called me screaming about how I'm taking away her daughter's only connection to her and that the birth certificate info has already been filled out, so we can't change it. She said she knows my wife and I won't allow her around the baby, and that changing the baby's name to one we chose is us displaying ownership over the baby, and the least we could do is honour the name my sister chose. Thing is, she's right. She's absolutely not allowed around my daughter for my baby's safety. She has no legal rights already, another much longer story. She's my daughter, my wife's daughter. So maybe letting her keep the name Jade is the right thing to do. It actually will be her only connection to my sister, her birth parent. Am I the idiot if I changed her name? You are the idiot. Do what you think is best for the baby. Honestly, the child is probably better off with no connection to the birth mother, name or otherwise. You and your wife aren't signing up to be daycare. You're her parents, not your sister. Period. When the adoption is finalised, the state will typically issue a new birth certificate listing you and your wife as the parents and the baby's name as whatever you choose. The idea that the birth certificate has already been filled out so her name can't be changed is nonsense. It's extremely normal for adoptive parents to choose a new name. I was adopted at 3 days old. I assumed my biological mom called me something during her pregnancy and the few days she had with me. Plus, you could make Jade her middle name if you wanted. Alexandra Jade doesn't sound awful. Problem solved. LOL. Everyone's the idiot here. I'm torn between applauding you for wanting to take care of your niece and shaking my head at the free hall pass you gave your sister for when she eventually pops out addiction baby number 6. Not only does your sister have no rights to what you do with what is now your daughter, seriously, she can get the heck out right along with your mother. Babies are not like trees where she can etch her preferred name to it, then walk away forever, but claim ownership and connection to it. The enabling, the entitlement. I feel like your good deed is being overshadowed by all the other BS. So, I love to bake desserts. It's a meditative sort of activity to me. I really enjoy making tasty treats for other people, especially since I'm not a huge sweets person and couldn't ever eat all the stuff I bake. Most of the time I take it into work. I work at a small restaurant staffed by about a dozen people, including the 2 owners. We're all pretty tightly knit as most of us have been here since the restaurant opened. I started bringing desserts for everyone to enjoy. It was never an obligation, nor did it ever feel like it. But I got a little miffed when I went in the day after I dropped off a pie to get my glass pie dish, and one of the owners handed it back to me still dirty. It still had crumbs and bits of pie crust left in it. I didn't say anything and just resolved to let it go. The following week I made an apple cake in a glass to bring in and left it that evening so the others on the later shifts could enjoy it too. 2 days later, on my next shift, I was given back my dish that was still dirty, and now it needed to be soaked to clean it because the crumbs and such had dried into a hard layer. I thought this was kind of rude, as I'd been raised that if someone gifted me food, casseroles, etc., it was good manners by washing the dish that it came in when you go to return it. It happened a couple more times, so I asked the owner who was managing that day if my dishes could be washed before I got them back. However, the next few weeks nothing changed and my dishes were still left dirty when they were returned. I decided that I'd just use disposable bakeware for anything I took to work. However, I ran into an issue that sometimes the baking time and temperature for some of my recipes doesn't work for the cheap metal disposable bakeware, something I'd forgotten about until I took a pie to work, and when they cut into it, it was discovered that the bottom crust was a bit burnt. One of the owners joked that I'd downgraded my equipment so they got burnt pie. A server said she'd noticed I'd stopped using glassware and wondered why. So I replied that my glassware was never cleaned after everyone had eaten, and it was a major pain in the neck to clean after it was dried on. Plus, I felt that it was a bit rude to have my dishes returned to me still dirty. The server shot back that the desserts were gifts, and it's actually rude to insist that the giftees have to do something in return. Another server agreed with her and said that if I was expecting them to wash my dishes for me, then I shouldn't bother making food for them at all. So I said I wouldn't if it was such a contentious issue. The servers said I was being petty and are refusing to speak to me unless they have to. Now, I could see their reasoning that someone being gifted something shouldn't be obligated to do something in turn, but I still feel it's rude not to wash the dish that gifted food came in, so am I the idiot? Hogwash. It's not rude to expect the dishes to be cleaned. Who does that? It's part of the social contract. If someone brings in food, any dishes, utensils get washed before being returned. Were these people raised by wolves? You are not the idiot. I believe there's a difference between treats and gifts. It's just common courtesy to clean a dish before returning it to someone. They're ungrateful slobs who don't deserve any of your delicious treats. What bothers me most in this case is that it's a restaurant. They have dishwashers, both the machines and people designated to do the job. Why can't someone get the dish washed? You are the idiot. Ordinarily, I would agree with you. If you gift a dish to a neighbour or friend, they should return the dish clean. However, in this case, you're gifting to a large group of people, so then who is supposed to take responsibility for cleaning that dish? In this case, no one person is being rude. There just isn't a fair way to allocate that responsibility amongst the random people that benefit from your gift. If you say the person who takes the last piece, I guarantee there will be a lady piece left in your dish until you pick it up.